In early July, Ministry of Housing and Urban Affairs released a press note on the status of government's 100 Smart City mission, which stated that 90% of the projects in these chosen cities are completed and the remaining 10% will be completed under an extended timeline of 31st March 2025. Now, today on the Urban Agenda, we revisit a simple question. What did India's 100 Smart City mission set out to accomplish, and what has it really achieved? After all, when flooded cities and collapsing airport infrastructure bridges make the biggest headlines, the word smart when it comes to cities and urbanization comes across as a bit of a misfit. All right, let's get straight to our guests. We have with us Dr. Sharma, former IAS officer, who was the architect of this mission during his stint at the Ministry of Housing and Urban Affairs. And of course, he has extensive experience in urban affairs. He was also the chief executive to the chief minister of Andhra Pradesh, driving sustainable development goals for the state. Dr. Karuna Gopal also joins us today. She is the president of Futuristic Cities and a BJP leader, and has very strong and clear views on what we must do with Indian cities to make them livable and improve their quality of life. Dr. Sharma, you were the architect, so I'm going to come to you. What was the concept of this smart city mission when it was carved out under your, let's say, tutelage? Is that the right word to use, or direction?
Thank you, Manisha. And, let me explain what was the smart cities in very simple terms. And I'll take from the plans which were prepared for the 50 cities. The 50 cities were asked to make plans, and based on the way the plans were made on some criteria, they were selected. Now, the plans had three parts. The first part was, in every city, we had to have what we call tap for each household, toilet for each household. Then we had these metro trains for transportation, garbage removal for each household. Now, with this, the connected STPs and transmission lines, all that was part of the first part of the Smart City mission. The second part was what we call the digital part, or the commonly called command and control centers. Now, these had two objectives. The first was that these were supposed to make the services more efficient, and second, to bring about accountability. Let me give an example. I was also in charge of Banaras city for 1 year, looking after the Honorable Prime Minister's constituency. So let me tell you what we tried to do in garbage management. Garbage management was done like this. We would have house-to-house collection every day. The moment it was collected, a message would go to the householder saying the garbage was collected. And then it would be transported, monitored through GPS, go to a dump site, and at the dump site or the waste to energy plant, it will be recycled or whatever has to be done. So you look at the accountability part. Every day you get a message. In case they have not lifted the garbage, you say no, it was not lifted. You look at it, the monitoring part, which is reduced in this.
Okay. And you've broken it down so beautifully. So yes, there were these basic utilities which had to be taken to every citizen's doorstep. There was a technology layer over that, whether it's through apps or that, command and control center, so that information is passed very quickly and quality of services could be monitored. And the third was areas were taken, and those had to be basically amped in terms of the citizen experience. So within this framework, Dr. Gopal, what's your sense? I mean, if I were to go today out on the streets and ask anybody living in one of the cities which has won the smart city competition and which seems that they have completed it, I think there'll be a very small percentage in probably some of the big cities or the phase one cities like Indore or Surat, who have done very well, or Bhubaneswar, who might say they have seen a substantial change on all these fronts. But for the rest of the cities, and there are 100 of them, I don't think we will get that feedback. Would you agree or disagree?
I agree with you, Manisha. I agree with you. In fact, this is something that I repeatedly have to justify when a lot of people ask me this question, what has it achieved? So one has to be pretty practical to really say that whether the mission has been successful or not. Now, just if you have to look at other missions of the Prime Minister, think most of them have been very successful. But the smart cities mission, we have to take it with a pinch of salt for various reasons. For various reasons, let's not jump and say that it failed and all that. Let's understand. First of all, the urban system in India itself is terribly complex. I mean, this has been said repeatedly. We do have a very complex urban system, and our problems are systemic. They are layered. There are many issues, and it's the largest urban system with some 5,000 cities and towns, etc. Now, when this particular mission was launched, perhaps I was the only one that had a black hat, for the simple reason that I knew from the beginning that our Indian cities were not ready for either technology adoption or a total reform that smart cities actually expect. Let me give you 2 or 3 very important things that perhaps were not done to a certain level of satisfaction. One is, when you announce the mission, it's a lofty vision of the Prime Minister, very well said. But we have not defined what the smart city is actually. For instance, you go to Singapore. Singapore has a very clear definition of what is a smart city. Some of the smart city definitions in other countries have very clearly said that it's a well-governed city, a green city.
Okay. So you're saying that there were too many goals.
No, yeah.
We were trying to accomplish too much. Okay.
Exactly.
Second?
Right. The second thing is, how we even said that just simple 3 things, like, let's retrofit 500 acres and just 50 acres of green development or 250 acres of, let's say, rebuilding. This to me sounded unbelievable because a city runs into several square kilometers. And when you are talking about a smart city, you're talking about these small pockets. Let's take one central university in Hyderabad. It is 2,000 acres. So here we're talking about, rebuilding or retrofitting in just 500 acres.
So the area-based developments which were identified were too narrow. Okay. Third?
Yeah, so that certainly was, perhaps one of the biggest, mess-ups that happened. I'll tell you for various reasons that at that point in time, maybe the technology vendors were putting in enormous pressure, and you have too many inputs from many people. India that way never had any, smart city experience per se. So everything was being thrust by the big 4, maybe those big 4.
Dr. Gopal, hold your thought there because I did go back to the big 4. Dr. Sharma, I saw that excitement when the mission was announced. The big 4 were queuing up at Ministry of Housing and Urban Affairs. They were also at the doorsteps of every chief secretary of a state, municipal commissioner, trying to work with them, right? And when I spoke to them in July, first week, when the press note came out, they're all so disappointed. Now, I take that with a bag full of salt because obviously it could mean that they did not get the business that they expected, or that the public-private participation did not take off, or that the project management consultants which were brought on board according to them were not of quality. But I'm not going to go down. My question to you is that what Dr. Gopal says is correct, and that's where is the crux of the thing. There are so many missions launched by the Prime Minister in 2015-16, and Smart City Mission seems to have been the one which kind of did not get its moment under the sun or wasn't recognized as one that is delivered. Why do you think that happened?
Manisha, see, I'll just take off from what Karuna has said. 3 points she made. One was complexity, and the second was the technical part, and then cities were not ready. See, if you look at the mission document, Manisha, it was there. It's a bold new experiment. And, we, at that time, we understood that doing a single, simple program like Amrut would succeed. Please remember, we had started Amrut at the same time, and Amrut succeeded 95%, 98%. So we knew, but we also knew that the single programs were unable to take care of the complexity. You see, it's like a human body, Manisha. You make a hand, you make a leg separately, don't connect to the brain. The eye sees your hand is burning, but it doesn't remove the hand. This is what we found since the National Commission on Urbanization was happening. We could have just taken up An alternative which I possibly think now is taking up all these areas at the same time and make it one area-based program. Take up one digital program as it was in the smart cities of Rio, New York, etc. The third was this, but what we thought, unless you bring it together, that cohesiveness, so planning cohesiveness happened. Implementation, as you say, with this complexity, managing the complexity and bringing about cohesion is the main reason why the impact is not felt. But imagine if this impact was there, roads were made, sidewalks were made. And this criticism came at that time also, as Karuna says rightly, you're picking up one small area. There are 40, 50 areas. The purpose was the smart city would show this area as a lighthouse. And the cities were supposed to develop other areas, to just not supposed to limit it to one. It was supposed to be multiplied by them. So that was what happened. So there was integrated planning, but integrated execution was the place
where it was missing. Okay.
New.
Dr. Sharma, you raised a very important point, but last year we also had the winners of the Smart City Challenge announced, and Surat made it for the third time. Dr. Gopal, do you believe that it's not really the document, it's A, the complexity, and B, some cities have done reasonably well, but others haven't. So it is a capacity issue. Some cities just don't have the manpower or the bandwidth to have been able to make a success of it.
Yes. So, Manisha, the first and the most important thing has been the lack of capacities at the municipal level. For instance, when, much before the smart cities were announced, almost 10 years before that, we started looking at the innards of the cities, the municipalities, and we saw they were just not at all up to speed in keeping records or in even envisioning for anything different. So nothing was digitalized, and they knew very less about contemporary technologies or even methods and ways to improve their functioning. One is that. Then the staff inadequacies are also there. Let's accept the municipal system. So for me, it was a horror when I heard that 100 smart cities will be developed, because we were not ready and the municipal system was not ready. And at that point in time, perhaps we could have worked in a very different way. For instance, now you are saying Surat, Indore, they performed very well. Primarily because you just see, Manisha, even before the smart cities, earlier there was the Jawaharlal Nehru National Urban Renewal Mission. Even during that time, these were the cities that were performing very well. They were writing proposals, they were accessing funds. So they developed, so they were kind of ready. So my biggest worry at that time was, why couldn't we have chosen these cities first? Maybe select 10 to 12 cities, give them everything, give the funding, don't just put 100 crores, which is nothing. I mean, seriously, today if you see 100 crores, you can't build a palatial house or whatever. So I was little worried about that. Supposing a lot of money was given to these dozen cities, which are kind of prepared, then you could have demonstrated better adoption of technology, demonstrated riverfront development, demonstrated bicycling tracks, every little thing. And India would have kind of sat up to see, okay, actually the mission's working. So
you've really said something so interesting, that why did we expand it to 100 cities? Look at how much the northeastern cities have struggled. They pretty much have barely been able to accomplish anything. They don't have the capacity. We could have just taken 12 cities or 15 cities, and really the top 20 cities in the first round which got approved are the ones who have the maximum success to show for, because they have the capacity to draw out the plans, the proposals, the DPR, set up SPVs and get really good talent. Okay, I'm going to take a very quick short break. My question to both of you will be, should we continue with the Smart City mission in a different format or adopt something absolutely different in this next 5-year term? Because cities do need attention, and desperate attention. Stay with us. We are focusing on India's 100 Smart City mission to ask what has the mission accomplished, and now that it's nearing its completion, has it really been a successful example that India should continue with? Dr. Sharma, I mean, you were the architect of the mission, but tell me now, in this entire quest of urbanization, and we are urbanizing so rapidly, everyone knows the figures, they can see it. Do we continue the Smart City mission in a different format? Or do you think that we need a completely different idea to now enthuse or see that big change that we need to see, even in a few cities, to make them an example?
Okay, I'll try to bring all this together now. If a new mission has to, it could be like this. First, executing such a complex mission is a big challenge. There's no doubt about it. So what could we do? We could break it up now. So the first part would be, you look at these systems now. So you look at the transport system, you look at the solid waste management system, you look at liquid waste management, and you look at the water supply. And let the cities find out the gaps and let them bridge that. So the entire city, everybody gets this. After that, you look at the digital and see if it can be used to complete the accountability, what we call democratic administration, where citizens have direct control over, say, the lowest level of functionaries like the sanitary inspectors, the building inspectors. So you have that, with social media and all that. The other thing which is improving the quality of services. See, 3 services are of very importance in a municipal area. Birth and death certificate, the land title change, and the building permission. They take up 80-90% of the volume. Now, all these, we could have something like a passport system, disintermediation of government. So have something like a passport system which would work there. Then finally, areas. What Karuna says is right. We cannot take up a small area. So now pick up an area program. And for that, you could take up, instead of 100, you could take up X number of cities, which now are ready. And other cities could also learn from and then take them in phase 2, phase 3, phase 4, phase 5. But you have to develop the areas. You have to make them walkable. You have to charge for parking. You have to do all this. Otherwise, how will people walk? How will you have pure air? So picking up from this, follow the reductionist approach, make it single line, because what we have seen last 10 years, wherever there's a single line objective-oriented mission giving gas cylinder, it works. Because,
you're right. And that's exactly what Dr. Gopal is also saying, that, make the focus narrow, very specific, very goal-oriented, rather than spreading it very, very thin. I think both of you are converging to the point that maybe it was too stretched, too thinned out. We didn't have the capacity and we embarked on a very ambitious program. So it's so lost that citizens haven't seen the benefit or haven't recognized the benefits of it, even for the work that has happened. Very small. Your solutions before we close the show.
Okay. Manisha, 2 very important things I'd like to share now. The first thing is smart cities has demonstrated performance. For instance, if you look at the command and control centers now, yes, they are fully functional, they are brilliant, they have tried to aggregate data, which has never been done before, they have delivered. So we have very good case studies in different cities. For instance, bicycling tracks in one area, one city, then you have maybe incubation center in another city, then you have some innovation center in another city, then rapid transportation. So we have multiple things that are working in small pockets in different parts of the country. Another brilliant thing has happened in the last 8 years. One is a deep research has been conducted in this space. For instance, today we have frameworks, guidelines, protocols. For instance, I think the ministry has come out with guidelines for municipal performance and certification programs, smart cities index. Many indices have been developed, including cities and climate change. So today we have the entire resource with us.
It's been absolutely wonderful to hear your views, which are progressive, solution oriented. So thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And to all of you, thanks so much for watching. This is an unending process, but something which I'm going to conclude with. There are examples, there have been successes under the Smart City mission. The question is, how do we replicate it across the cities and across the country? Thanks so much for watching.